So now I'm going to show you how to factor quadratic equations. There's a few different methods. The method I'm going to show you is called factoring by grouping, and it amounts to this. Factoring by grouping consists of first looking for a greatest common factor, and no matter what kind of factoring you're doing, you always want to look for a greatest common factor first, because if you can factor that out, it's going to make your numbers smaller, make your factoring easier. Plus, it's going to ensure that it's completely factored and you have the right answer. After I look for the greatest common factor, I'm going to do the first times the last. I'm going to split the middle term. I'm going to group them and then factor out the greatest common factor from each group. Now, you may not know exactly what all this means. You will by the end, and then we'll recap again. Okay, so first, let's look at an example. In our first example, we have x squared plus 8x plus 12. We're going to look for a common factor first. And when I look at these three terms, is there anything that all three of them have in common? And this is where people sometimes make mistakes. The first two terms do both have an x, but the third one doesn't. The second two terms do both have 4 as a common factor, but the first one doesn't. So you cannot factor out a common factor here because there is no factor that's common to all three. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through the process of factoring by grouping. When you're factoring by grouping, the first thing we want to do is take our first coefficient, which is 1, and multiply it by our constant at the end. So we're doing first times last. 1 times 12 is 12. And then next, I want to split my middle term. And by split our middle term, what we're going to do is we're going to split this 8x into two pieces. Those two pieces are going to be two terms where the coefficients multiply to give me 12 and add to give me 8. So the 12 comes from up here, and then the 8, of course, comes from there. And so I need two numbers that multiply to give me 12 and add to give me 8. If you're not sure, just go off to the side, start thinking about factor pairs that give you 12. 1 times 12, that's not going to add up to 8. 2 times 6, yep, that'll do the trick. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to split 8x into 2x and 6x. So what we're doing is we're finding those pieces that we need to complete our factoring. If you'll remember, back when we looked at multiplication, when you distribute everything out, you actually get 4 terms, and those two middle terms have the x's in them. And so what we're doing by splitting the middle term is we're figuring out what those two pieces were. So thinking about the area model, what we've got now is 1x squared plus 2x plus 6x plus 12. And so your area model, like we talked about before, looks like this. I've got 1x squared, I've got 2x's here and 6x's here, and I've got 12 here. And so thinking back to multiplication, you'll remember that we got these 4 pieces. And so what we're doing when we're factoring by grouping is we're figuring out what these two pieces are, because we have 8, they've been combined, and so we need to know the right way to split them up. And so that's why we're going through this process. Our first times our last, and then we're finding two numbers that will multiply to give us 12 and add to give us 8, and that gave us 2 and 6, which gives us the right numbers for our area model or for our multiplication. Now, in order to work this all the way backwards, see, we're part way backwards. Our middle term's now in 2 parts. We've now got to figure out what those original pieces were. And the easiest way to do that is to group these first two and group these last two. That's why it's called factoring by grouping. And so you'll see in our first group, we have a common factor. That common factor is x. And so when I factor x out of this first group, I'm left with x plus 2. Looking at my second group over here, I have a common factor of 6. So I factor my 6 out, and I'm left with x plus 2. Now you'll notice these two are the same, and they should be. If they are not, something has gone wrong. So if they're not the same, go back and check. So basically what we're doing now is we now know that x plus 2 has been multiplied by x, and that x plus 2 has been multiplied by 6, which means my factors are x plus 2, and it's been multiplied by x and 6. And so I've got x plus 2 times x plus 6. Those are my original two factors. This is my factored form, and I've now factored it by grouping. The way to double check your answer, of course, would be to go back and distribute that out, see if you got what you started with. And if you do, everything's good. If you don't, something went wrong, go find your mistake. Now that all the explaining's done, the examples will go faster. I'm looking for a common factor. Once again, I don't see one. So I'm going to go first times last. And so I've got 2 times negative 10, that's negative 20. I need two numbers that are going to multiply to give me negative 20 and add to give me negative x. So I'm going to go off to the side and think about the number 20. Well, it could be 1 times 20, could be 2 times 10, could be not 3 times anything, could be 4 times 5. And so which one of those pairs can give me a negative 1, because that's what my coefficient is here. Remember, they have to multiply to give me 20 and add to give me negative 1. Well, the answer is these two will if I have negative 5 and positive 4. So I'm going to split my middle term into negative 5x and positive 4x. And I'm going to bring down my 2x squared and bring down my minus 10. And you'll see this picture. Some people think this picture, when I draw my lines, do this process of splitting the middle term, some people think it looks like a pair of pants. And so some people call this the pants method. So if you want to call it that, you can. Sometimes I tell my students, if you want to factor it, just pants it. And so here we go. We've got our two groups. We're going to look for a common factor. So we did, once again, we did first times last. We split our middle term. Now we're looking for a common factor. Common factor here in the first group is x. And so I'm left with 2x minus 5. My common factor in the second group is 2. And so I'm left with 2x minus 5, which is very nice. They are supposed to be the same. Once again, if these two are not the same, then something's gone wrong. And so I now know that 2x minus 5 has been multiplied by x plus 2. And now I have my factor form. All right, example number 3. In example number 3, we do have a common factor. If you look at these three terms, they all have a common factor of 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor that 3 out, and I'm left with 3x squared plus 7x plus 2. And so this is going to be much, much easier than if I did first times last on my original. I'd have 54 and 21, but now I have first times last is now going to be 6. I need two numbers that multiply to give me 6 and add to give me 7. Well, my only possibilities for multiplying to give me 6 are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. And so if I want to get 7, then it looks like I'm going to split this middle term into 6x and 1x, because 6 times 1 is 6 and 6 plus 1 is 7. I'm going to bring down my 3x squared. I'm going to bring down my plus 2. This 3, I'm done with, really. It's just going to carry down into my answer. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that there. And so now I'm ready to factor by grouping. I'm going to group these, and the common factor is 3x, which leaves me with x plus, that was plus, yes, x plus 2. And then over here, the only common factor I have, the greatest common factor between these two, is 1, and I do need to factor that out. So make sure if you don't see a common factor, you just factor out 1, which leaves me x plus 2. And so now I know that since these two are the same, I have x plus 2, and it's been multiplied by 3x plus 1. I still have my 3 from the beginning, and that is my factored form. I wanted to show you an example with a negative at the beginning, because with a negative at the beginning, it can complicate things if you don't factor out that negative. So the key there is just make sure you factor out the negative. So I know I'm going to factor the negative out. The question is, am I going to factor anything else out? Is there a common factor here? And I'm really glad to see that there is, because if there was not, I would have had to deal with that 120, which I can, but I'd rather not do. So let's take a look at this. If I factor out the negative 3, I'm left with x squared. I'm left with positive 6x. And I'm left with negative 40. So still a fairly big number, but the bonus is this is only 1x squared. So when I do my first times my last, I'm just getting negative 40. I need two numbers. They're going to multiply to give me negative 40 and add to give me 6. And so I need to think about that. So I start thinking about 40. It could be 1 and 40. It's not going to work. Could be 2 and 20. That's not going to work. Could be 4 and 10. Aha, that could be it, because the difference there is 6. So how would that work? Well, I would need a positive 10 and a negative 4. So negative 4 plus 10 is 6, and negative 4 times 10 is negative 40. That's my right split. So I'm going to go ahead, and that 3 is just going to carry down to my answer. I'm going to split my middle term into negative 4x and positive 10x. And so I'm bringing down my 1x squared. I'm bringing down my minus 40. And I've got this group, which has a common factor of x, leaves me x minus 4. I have this group, which has a common factor of 10, which leaves me x minus 4. And so I know that I have x minus 4, and it's been multiplied by x plus 10. My 3 is out front, my common factor from the beginning, and that is my factored form. So to wrap this process up again, you want to look for a greatest common factor first. Then do your first times last and split the middle term, which is going to give you your pants. Then you're going to group those and factor out the common factor from each group, and then you'll be left with your factors that you need. And that is how you factor by grouping.